Hello, my name is Peter Cinnamon, and you're very welcome to this. It's a podcast, and it's all about the Irish League, where you're getting 2 episodes in 1 week over these past 7 days. If you haven't checked out the one talking about any football fun with Aaron from Niffle Grounds, go and do that now, of course. But this, something a wee bit different. Usually don't do interviews, but I know you enjoy when I get to talk to one of these professionals, do a bit of a deep dive. And I thought now would be a great time to catch up with Michael Carvill. You might know him as a player who played for Linfield, Crusaders, as well as Dungannon Swifts in the top flight. But beyond that, he is now the CEO of the PFA in Northern Ireland, which is pretty much the union for our players here. So plenty of things to talk to him about. Where are players' heads at in 2025? What are their concerns? What way do they want to see the league progress? As well as just talk generally about what his career was like, as well as working with some of the best managers this league has ever seen. So, big interview to sit back and enjoy. Thanks for listening, and you're very welcome to your double up, latest double weekly editions of Kick a Match. It's great to say hello to PFA NI CEO Michael Carvill. You keeping well?
Yes, all good, Peter. Thank you very much. Enjoying the kids being back to school and everything else that goes with that as well. Getting a bit of my time back, which is fantastic after a busy summer.
I bet you are. In PFA land, is the summer a quieter time or a busier time?
Well, obviously, since making the transition into it full time, it's been very busy. I think it's the work that people don't see you doing, I think, is the most difficult. I think all the stuff that goes on social media is the visiting change rooms, attending meetings, attending conferences, is all the nice stuff, so to speak. I think it's all the other stuff that we do behind closed doors, which is obviously the busier element of what we do.
When you reflect on your own playing career, are you surprised that there wasn't something like this?
Yes and no. I suppose, obviously, I did a bit of research around this as well, and it had previously been attempted to be set up by quite a lot of players previously, back to Peter Dornan, I think Glenn Ferguson, Brian Strain. I spoke to them all, and they talked about the need for it all those years ago. So in their case, it was not maybe that it wasn't there. The process wasn't there, if that makes any sense. I think what really flipped it for myself was the backing of FIFPro, was the way that there was a governing body that was set up to support you, and to help you get to this point. I think for them, they were literally trying to set up a union that was going to run merely on players meeting in hotel rooms, getting together, having conversations. Like, you look at technology nowadays as well. Like, if we want to have a team meeting, we can set up a Zoom call within an hour. If you need to pull everyone together, send out a Zoom link in the WhatsApp group, and then all of a sudden you have 20 players on a call. Previously, I just don't think the technology added up, nor did the support and funding. But it was amazing when you go back into the old leagues and speak to the old players, that every one of them, the first thing says, wish we would have had one. I wish we could have kept ours going, and you definitely need one, kind of thing, which is always what you want to hear when you're obviously trying to do something or set it up.
Was there a moment for you that it all clicked, that you thought, this is something I want to do, I want to get involved in? Because it's not in everybody's nature.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, the moment for me was when I returned from England. I came back from England and I'd been helped by the PFA over there, who were fantastic with me and really helped me when moving to England, and then obviously returning home, which was for me was the most important, because when you return home, it's obviously a big shock to the system. You don't see it coming. You don't prepare for it. But obviously with their support to help me, and I came back into the Linfield dressing room, and I remember looking around me and kind of feeling a bit guilty, because I was getting support maybe and getting access to stuff, and the players within the Irish League I felt weren't. And it didn't sit right with me, and I kind of thought, that's not fair, because to be honest, that 18-year-old boy over there who maybe has left school, is now training with Linfield, it could be in 2 years' time here really needing support. And who's going to help him? Because football clubs, unfortunately, just can't help in every single player. There comes a point where it becomes down to performance and the player has to move on, and that happens in football. It's the nature of the business of the game. But for me, that's when I thought, we have to look in this. This is not right. Something has to be set up here to protect the players and help the players and give the players a platform to speak. I suppose that was the moment where it all kind of started.
Well, many people would talk about the importance of having that third party, that separation of the club and the player. And by all accounts, the clubs do look after their players pretty well, currently. But it's always good to have that separation. Michael, for me, I want to talk a bit about your career as well as the stuff that you're doing in the with the PFA, and you've went straight to the moment that I want to talk about now. And I've talked to a few people about this, where you have the success when you're young, early on. You go to England, you even have a wee bit of time in Wrexham, and there is that moment where you return to the Irish League. Was that something you felt was coming when you were younger, or as you said, what was it a shock? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, it was very strange, to be honest. I'm not one to but boast about myself, or obviously it's not really in our nature to do so. But I think when I was young, I had a very, very, very good youth career. Like, I think in my unders, I played a year up internationally, which obviously highlights stuff like that. And it was myself and Johnny Evans were maybe the two at the same age that were pushed up to play. Like, we were only 14, playing for the under 16s in the Victory Shield. I think I played for the under 19s when I was only 16 under Mal Donaghy. So I had a very, very golden youth career, and I remember qualifying for the last eight on with Kenny Shields team for the under 17s. At that point, and I was still in school. I was 15. Some boys were in England, and I just remember. I think I was top goal scorer. Me and Michael O'Connor, and out of all the Northern Ireland boys at the time, and I was one of the highest scoring in Europe in this tournament. It was bizarre. So I was kind of living this life that was just like, it was going faster than I could control. I was just playing football, but it was getting a lot of attention, and I was going across the clubs every weekend, and there was a list of clubs offering to sign me, and madness when I look at it. I signed for Charlton Athletic thinking there's an opportunity to play first team football here. And I laugh at that out loud when I say that, because obviously I've seen the way my career is obviously panned out, but that was the mindset. And then, so when that moment comes, I was training, I was with the first team at Charlton Athletic, I was training for 2 years, and Alan Pardew just came in and just said, "There's no contract here for you, and I want you to leave immediately." I was I was like I was like, immediately as in like next week, or next month, or the window or something. It was like, no, we're going to settle your contract up and pay you out, and you're free to go. So I was literally left the training ground as a 18-year-old with an envelope with a check in it, and I didn't even look at the check, to be honest, because it was I was too much tears come down my face. And then that's where the kind of the penny dropped. Went, wow, this is the world we're in now. Like, this is what everybody warns you about. Everybody warns you about it, and this is what I say to young players. You're probably sick of people saying to you, "Oh, did you think about Plan B? Do you think about it?" Of course, you think about it, but until it happens, until that moment hits, it's dumbfounding. You're speechless, and you don't actually know who to turn to as well. So yeah, and then obviously Wrexham, went to Wrexham and experienced League Two football, and the challenges of coming from a Premier League club and going there, and it was a completely different style of play. And after a while at Wrexham, I kind of looked at it and thought, this is League Two in England, and people were struggling, and there was talks of clubs going bust, and Wrexham were not Ryan Reynolds Wrexham. They
No,
were a different.
you must look at that now and go, "How on earth is this?" It's not. I'm sure it's not the same club that you remember, but just how much time can change things.
I was in the team that got relegated at Wrexham from the relegated to the conference. So we were League Two. I remember we stayed up the year before, scored in the last minute. The place went mad, and then the following year it was down. But like a club, it was a very, very special wee club. There's something unique about Wrexham. I don't know what it was. Where it was situated, the stadium was brilliant and all, and the real strong support. So I'm not surprised an investor looked at it and obviously came in and built that dream. But where that club was, like, that club was finished when I went down to the conference. There was talk of it closing the gates, couldn't keep pay salaries and all and things like that. So it's great to see that. I laugh. My son is in P5 now, and there's people in his class who are like, "Wow, your dad played for
Wrexham,
Wrexham." I
Charlton,
never thought I'd
who?
hear that. I never thought that would ever happen in my life. Yes, and then obviously he returned home, I think, to play for Linfield. And to be honest, at the time when I was returning home, I was really excited, I think, because when you're going through a bad time in football, you're looking for a new challenge. You're looking for that. And the thought of coming home and re-engaging with family, living at home, meeting all my old friends, and football like that there was excited me. And I did. I came back, and I was very lucky to come back to David Jeffrey, obviously with open arms, and the team that I walked into was just superb. Like, and it actually was one of the best seasons of my career. My first year back at Linfield, even though we didn't win the league, it was just a really enjoyable time. Like, so I was very lucky, I think, in that aspect. If I came back, and I've seen it before, players come back and they're disillusioned, good players, and they come to Linfield and then it doesn't work from at Linfield, and then they go somewhere else and it doesn't work from there, and then that's when they drop out of the game and fall in love with the game. I was very lucky that Linfield was kind of like my safety net, caught me a wee bit, and that was the thing.
I have never been a sportsman and obviously never will now, but it's a funny balance. I often think of just how so much of it is you have to have that mentality and you have to kind of be humble, but also have so much confidence and push and bite to also succeed at any kind of level. And that must be a kind of weird balance when you're younger, where you said it, you were killing it when you're in this youth setup, you were doing so well, and then you have to take that first bruise, and it comes for everybody clearly, but it's then how you motivate. Does it, like, was it anger, was it frustration you think that kind of kept you going, or was it maybe love for the game? Perhaps it's something else.
Yeah, that no, for certain players, it's amazing. I've met a lot of players, I guess, as well. I love the game. Like, you know what I mean? If the game's on, I'll watch the game. If there was a game in the park, I'd be watching and loving it. I love the game. It's always been a love for the game. I've met loads of unbelievable players, by the way, that actually hate the game and wouldn't watch it if it was on TV in their house to turn it off. And it's the mad balance. But for me, it was always the love of the game and the enjoyment. And I think that's what's most important. That's what always keeps you going, kind of thing, in those dark times. Because that's what I say to the players when in the dressing rooms as well. Now is there is dark times, and just because it's not maybe spoken about as a dark time as a player, it can be seen as a dip in form. Like how many times have we heard that phrase, a dip in form or something like that? There, most of the times when you have a dip in form, there's something not right, both on and off the pitch, and it's the good managers can identify that, but for other people, it's very difficult because we're in a business of winning. Everybody wants to win, of course we do, but if you're not winning and you're not playing well, you're out of the team, kind of thing. And I'm dealing with all those struggles. So, like I said, any young player, that's why football and sport's good, because it teaches you to deal with these struggles and how you cope with disappointment and how you cope with failure, because that's life basically. So it's those learning steps that you make through football, I think, set you up better outside of football, believe it or not, later on in life. But when you're living in it, it's very, very difficult.
I'm talking about that experience for young players, late teens or early 20s. Are you slightly jealous of the situation they're in now? Because we see so many more leave the Irish League and get these opportunities in England. Perhaps I was just ignorant of what was going on there before, but you obviously made it over there at a time you got your opportunity over in England, but you see them moving across now. I don't believe that was really such an easy connection as it is now.
Yeah, I think for me, there's different types of journeys in terms of, if you look at, a lot of players will go across the water at 16. They'll go across 16 now, and especially the way it's set up, obviously with the Performance Academy in Northern Ireland, they move over 16 and they're the prize players at that age. Maybe not always the best players in 10 years' time, but at that age, they are the best players. But the pathway that we're now seeing emerging, and that's the Gareth McCauley to go to Stuart Dallas, Gavin White, Liam Boyce, seeing that kind of pathway where the players are actually playing in the Irish League and they're going over ready to play senior football. That's obviously, maybe as you look at it, a better platform for them, because they're ready to cope with those demands and different things and moving house and moving out and such, not because they're at that age where they understand it. But then there's also the other journey where players are moving over at 15, 16 and trying to find their way, which again works for some, but it's just the nature of football. It doesn't work for everybody, and there will be disappointments along the way.
I've heard that, and I often wonder if I was in that position at 15, 16, and there's talk of moving over and getting into, a youth setup or an academy for a professional team in England or Scotland. It'd be hard to say no to that, because you don't know if it would ever come round again. We can talk about all the success stories that do get it, but there is that little, Father Time ticks on, and we know what those clubs can be like. Like, I think Conor McMenamin getting his move over there at the age that he was, that is the outlier.
Yeah.
And That I feel like that age is getting slightly lower and lower
Yeah.
every time. Like, is 23, 24, is that in the borderline now? You know, when you think you have so much of your career still to go.
It's the one recent one there stands out is obviously Matthew Orr at Linfield making that move the age he did, which is excellent. It's fantastic for the league, and me personally, I'd love to see more of that around that age. And when they get in, they play 50 to 100 games. The Trey Hume is the perfect example. Sorry, how can I forget Trey? Where they make that breakthrough into the league and establish themselves. I love that model of going players across. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. At 15 to 16, the clubs in England are now coming in, and they're not coming in and offering small amounts of money for our players. They're offering quite big chunks of money. So that money then is obviously goes into the club, and you're hoping that money is used wisely to reinvest back into the academy. But also for that young player, that's very difficult for a young player to turn that down at that age, at that moment. And they're also guaranteed top class, if not world class, training and coaching with an education. So even though they moved to England obviously people keep mentioning the failure rate and the dropout rate, they're going across to an elite environment, training every day, good education, good support, nutrition, everything you could think of as well. So that part of it, I think, is almost impossible to turn down because if that opportunity, as you rightfully said, might not come. And for those players that don't get selected, the Trey Hume route is perfect. They've got to stay here, work hard, do the extra bits, do everything they need to be to try and become a professional player and get senior games in the Irish League and then make a name for themselves. And then obviously their journey can be slightly different. But I do like that the Irish League now has a reputation of obviously players going across and making careers for themselves in England. That's really good.
I was just going to say the reputation clearly of the league has improved within those circles because I recall Peter Thompson going away. It was like, go buddy, go do the Irish League proud, and there was a big fee for him, but it was just such an anomaly. It felt
Yeah.
like, at least for my era, now there's so many people playing in the league and getting that opportunity to go through, and that clearly doesn't happen if there isn't success stories like Dallas, White, and the many countless others.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what is success for the league, and that's what the league I think. And I look at the League of Ireland, and I was at the Linfield Bohemians games and at both of them actually, and you look at it and you think, I think our league is in a position where we have potential to go further and improve and enhance, but I think there has to be fundamentally some slight changes to the calendar. For example, I think that better investment in the youth, in the academies, better use of resource. Obviously, you've seen today of all days, the Northern Ireland Football Funds went out and then improvement in facilities. That's for me the opportunity to start building and developing it even more so to create a better league and produce better players. And obviously, with that becomes compensation for our clubs. That's what makes the football wheel go round. And obviously, the opportunity for I'm jealous. I'm jealous and envious that the League of Ireland have is that three teams now in European stages qualifying. Like, I mean, that is massive for our country. We need to get to the point where we're getting teams qualifying for Europe each season to bring more money into the coefficient, to raise the ranking of the league, which then generates more money and resource to try and improve things. So for me, we're in a good place, but I think there's so much more potential within the league to improve, and obviously now's the time to do it for me.
What we're seeing in the League of Ireland now, players going for multiple
Yeah.
of millions to go across. So that's clearly where you want to go for youth team players, as well as just the overall quality and what that attracts. But Michael, you brought it up, not me. Why do you feel as though the changing of the league schedule and when it's played is important to the league taking that next step?
Yeah, I've always been a massive advocate for it. I, I look at a few things, and I always think about this as a player, and I speak as a player. So you look at the structure of our league and when it's played, we compete with the biggest beast in world football, which is the Premier League, for a start. So if there's a Premier League game on, if there's matches on, calendar matches on, it definitely lessens the attendance rate of our games. Less fans, less attendance, less opportunity for the club to generate more income, less opportunity. A TV station like a BBC is going to go, right, we'll give a package and we'll invest in the league. We want to watch it and things like that. Because if the fans aren't in the stand, it doesn't highlight that the league's as good as it actually is. And then with it, I have a family now, and the amateur league as well, and other parts of it. we all just clash. You can't, if you have a family over the winter months. I'm not, my son loves football, 9 years of age. I would love to say to him, let's go down in November on a Tuesday night and watch me pick up an Irish League game. With the greatest respect to all the Irish League clubs and their grounds, there's not many of them I would like to sit on in a November, December, January night. And that's the honesty behind it. It's cold, it's dark, it's miserable. And I'm sitting looking at that Linfield Bohemians game as an example at Windsor. It was a warm night. There was a red sky. The standard of football was really enjoyable. It was good to watch. Kids came out. It was still light when you left the ground, and it just had a better feeling to it. And that's my message to it. The more fans generate more interest, the better the quality. And then obviously the biggest message, and I've played in it. I did it every year of my career, apart from maybe the last couple of years, was I came in pre-season and got ready for a European game. Nobody can tell me we were ever at our best going into those European games. Now, we got some amazing results during that time. We beat some massive teams, but I was unfortunate to play in the era where you had the Conference League and the different standards and leagues. We were drawn against some teams, and we had no chance of qualifying. Like, I remember playing against Bate Borisov. I'm from Belarus, and they ended up in the group, I think, with Barcelona and so on. And we were like 20 minutes away from taking them to the like kind of extra time. And I remember looking at all those things and just thinking, our boys were punctured, like we were wrecked, we were knackered, we weren't in full time training. And I just look at that as an opportunity to go, right, the League of Ireland, and to be fair to the League of Ireland, it's grown. I watch it on a Friday night as well, even when it's on RTE. You kind of can see the stands are full. You can see more young people watching. They've obviously got an hour contract for streaming games. It's pushed on, it's improved, and I think that's there for us. It's our opportunity. Instead of maybe following the model of copying the English Premier League, which nobody in the world can compete with in terms of watching and viewing and stuff like that. So I think maybe that's a long-winded answer, but that's my own personal opinion around what would help.
I think that is important to say. You're on here, yes, as CEO of the PFA, but you are not speaking on behalf of all the players. You are speaking on behalf of just your own opinion.
Absolutely.
But like, are you not getting players coming to you saying, "Look, I'm a teacher. I'm, in whatever profession right now. There's no chance I can work over July and August and other months." Sure, we even saw Chris Shields come out and say you can't take summer and Christmas away from us.
Yeah, and I think that's the key message. It's I think I've seen the structure change around. Well, you don't get your summer, and then we'll also play the Boxing Day tradition game. I think that's just eating into the whole having both worlds. I think you have to make a decision. Either this league, I think the structure's there, isn't it? You either go with the League of Ireland structure or you stick to our current structure. I think the in between is a difficult one to sell. I look at the teachers and I look at that. I suppose from our perspective, what we're looking at is players within the league, the full time teams. Now I got 4 full time teams, right? And you look at that and goes, well, those 4 full time teams should be the ones that realistically are saying now, well, we're invested in this, so we're pushing on. We're driving forward, and they're the ones that are probably going to be up there challenging to win the league, representing the clubs in Europe. If you look at the list here, obviously you had Larne and Linfield and Cliftonville as well, obviously, who are maybe part-time at the minute. But that's the future of the league, and that's the way we want the league to develop and grow. It's interesting because when we put out surveys, I always think about this as well. If I ask the 18 to 24-year-olds a question, it might be different than players of my era who are 28 and above. Their answers might be, well, we've always done it this way, so it's easy for me. I've got my work sorted, I've got my wee holiday sorted, and I've got my job sorted kind of thing. But the players coming through now are coming into a full-time model, and they're the future of the league, so they're the ones that probably matter more with the greatest respect.
So you think there's a generation divide here within the players in regards to the summer schedule?
Yeah, I think you're seeing an influx of players coming across from professional leagues as well. I think Jeffrey talked about it, there's more players coming across. I was in a change room last night and I was asking questions, and you're hearing Scottish accents, English accents prevalent all the time, and they're coming even from the League of Ireland as well. They're coming up, and you're kind of the dynamics of the change rooms and it has changed, and players are now coming into the league, which is brilliant, by the way. It's fantastic. I really, really like it, but that just shows that then the difference in opinion is going to come as well. And there's going to come a point where when you ask the players what they want, it's very difficult to nail down based on the collective, because are we thinking about 10 years or are we thinking about individually? For me, it suits me now. So for next season, I'll just tick the box here and say I'm happy with the current structure. I think we have to look at it from a bigger picture and a bigger of growing the league and make a decision. Most importantly,
Is there any big issues at the minute that you're hearing on the ground from players that perhaps doesn't get enough attention from people like me and the media?
I think the biggest concern at the minute for me, and obviously, and this is within the members and when we're out speaking to them, and we try and communicate with our members and informally and formally through surveys and just discussions is the contracts is a big one. If I'm being honest, an Irish not many fans or supporters probably know this, but an Irish league contract hasn't changed since I first signed mine way back when I came back from Wrexham. Like it's the same contract. So that's a massive concern for us. Especially like small things with the growth of the women's game and the professional contract in the women's game and the rights that need to be in the contract to support both male and female players isn't there. Now we're close to getting that across the line, and we're working with the Irish FA and the Northern Ireland Football League are involved, obviously, and all the clubs around this consultation. And we're hoping to have the new contract ready for, if not this window, the next window.
Well, what's missing?
There's been a few things that obviously were initially brought to the table that weren't in the basic employment law around holiday pay, sick pay, statutory rights, paternity pay, maternity pay. You know, these are fundamentals of employment law that need to be included in all walks of life, and they weren't in our contract. So the big red flag for us was when we sent the contract away to FIFPro, because we get audited every year. FIFPro would come back with all the recommendations, and there was a long list of queries around the contract. So it was good for us because it gave us something to go out and speak to our members about and explain what needs to be in there. So stuff around the contract for us is paramount at the minute. The underlying message within the league after Michael Newbury and the year we've had last year is the welfare of our members. We're doing so much around gambling. I'm actually planning at an event tomorrow that raises awareness around marketing the gambling in sport and that what it's doing to players and things like that. So there's stuff around gambling, mental health, well-being. Our counselling rates this year have shot dramatically from last year. There's more players taking up the counselling, which we're delighted about. We're actually really happy about it because we want to get the environment where they feel comfortable. They can reach out for help. So there's no point saying, "Oh, it's a red flag." If more players are, I think it's quite the opposite. I think I'm glad now that they feel comfortable coming to get that help and speaking to someone, speaking to a professional to try and help them on their journey as a career. Because that's the role of the PFA, to make sure that they're all right off the pitch, so they can perform better on their pitch to improve their opportunities to professionalize their own game and improve. So that's the ongoing bits and pieces that come to the top of my mind.
Like, obviously, you don't know what's going on with people behind the scenes and what's going on in their head mentally. But when you think back to your days in that changing room with all those big personalities at Linfield, was something like mental health something that was even discussed? Could it be something you could approach when there's someone else breathing down your neck trying to get your place in the team?
That's my exact message to all players. If we would have mentioned mental health in that environment, and we had the best manager, by the way, that would have looked after you. Like, he looked after every player like it was his own son, he used to call you, and he was the best. But that wasn't the environment. That was the man manager. The environment was, you play well, you keep the shirt. If you don't play well, you lose the shirt. And it was like dog eat dog. We were best mates, we were friends, but we would have killed each other in training to get into the starting 11 for that Saturday. If mental health would have been, if we're being honest, would have been considered a weakness. It would have been considered, are they mentally ready to play the game? Are they in the right frame of mind? And that's where it would have been difficult. And that's where, as a player, if you did speak out, you could lose your place. And then the club would still support you. But once you're out of the team as a player, that might have been your crutch playing football. That might have been the one thing that kept you going. And then it would have spiraled downhill from there. So then you would have been out of the team. You might have left Linfield, which was the top club at the time. You would have went to another club. And then expecting everything to be okay. And then more problems would have hit. And I've seen that over my career. I've seen players leaving certain clubs and going to other clubs. And next thing you hear stories about them and you're kind of like, they've kind of fallen off the bandwagon here. But I think that is exactly what you're saying there. It's kind of like you couldn't speak out. It wasn't a subject that we were comfortable with as men. It just wasn't. And especially with our own our own way of being brought up. We were always taught that we were different being Northern Irish or Irish. When we were playing for our country, we're different. We're harder. We've been through hard
Mhm.
times. We can handle anything. One thing we don't do is quit. We fight. This is all the messages.
Especially the Irish League, which
Yeah.
tries, one of the things about it, because of the facilities and all the rest, like there's almost this attitude, oh, we're rough and ready, and we're the league that's a throwback.
Mhm.
And with that kind of throwback attitude comes potentially a lack of forward thinking when it comes to players' mental welfare.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's and the fans maybe as well might fall into that category a wee bit.
Well, I did want to ask you about that,
Yeah.
because we all know it's football. There is going to be fans chanting and saying, and this is not an Irish League thing,
Mhm.
but I think we've all been to games where the things that we have heard directed at specific players at times, and you think, imagine saying that to someone in real life. Like it really. Do you think fans need to potentially reflect on? Look, there's rivalry, there is poking fun, but sometimes what's being said is just beyond the pale.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually doing a hit project, online project with the Ulster University as well. We met the other day and we went through online social media and the comments that are coming through online social media, freedom of speech, and you read what people are actually writing now about Irish League players and commenting on their posts, and you just say to yourself, "Wow!" And every time I speak to the players, I know you read it. I know you read it.
Oh, they do.
I know you laugh at it sometimes as well in public, and you joke about it with your friends. But if you're telling me that doesn't hurt you, then you're made of different stuff than me. Believe me, because you know that your friends and family are on that social media site and they're reading it. You know people are reading that, and not the worst thing is some people are actually believing the stuff that's probably being said on it as well from these people that have no idea about the game is anything.
And it's all the little insecurities as well. I'm glad you mentioned online, because when you're doing brilliantly and everything's going all right, perhaps sometimes people are having a go at someone's appearance, their personal life, maybe a family situation, and even if it gets brushed off, that could really plant the seed. And also, as a fan base for the league, do we really want to be in a situation where we're causing significant hurt and pain towards people that we all pay money to watch and see?
Absolutely. My thing about it is Irish League football has a uniqueness around personalities and enjoyment and a bit of friendly banter, right? And that's good. We wind each other up. We have a bit of stick, but there is a line, like, and once that line is crossed, whether you're a fan, and by the way, this is obviously not fair on some fans because I'm sure there's fans that sit in the stands and hear other people say stuff and cringe. And I've heard stories of family members of players turning around and challenging fans within Irish League grounds when they're saying something because sometimes the fans themselves just irate. I seen it at Linfield. I remember sitting when you were injured or out of the squad and you're in the stand with them, and you just seen grown men. I felt like all their troubles were coming out as they bellowed across the pitch and
Mm-hmm.
abused the player. And there were certain players that no matter what they did, they were just constantly attacked. And that is for me something that fans maybe have to look at and go, why are you going to watch the game as well? What's your intention? Are you going to watch the game to support the team, or are you going to like sing, enjoy it, bring a friend along, have a bit of a social night? Is it a bit of a enjoyment factor, or sometimes are you going just to abuse after 20 minutes if your team hasn't scored? You know, or if it's a big game, do you want to go to abuse the opposition fans and stuff like that? There, those are parts of football that football has that kind of what's the word? It's kind of tribal, isn't it? It's kind of what football is. But for me, it crosses the line, and once you cross that line, there's no going back. Like so, yeah. For players, for fans, for stuff being said on social media, it's just something that doesn't really make the league look attractive when you think about that. And I'm talking about sponsorship deals and growing the league commercially and things like that. You bring across a sponsor and they're sitting in the crowd and they hear things like that being shouted on the pitch. It's not exactly ideal, but it's something that we speak to the players about, and we're realistic. We're realistic and say this is going to happen to you. How are you going to cope with it? How can we help you? How can we deal with it? I mean, these people that are typing this in don't care. It's not going to mean anything to them, but it could affect your well-being. It could affect you, and it could affect your
Totally.
performance. Do you know what I mean? Kind of thing. So the only person that's going to lose here is the player, because the fan will go on the next week and write, "Oh, he was man of the match today. Sorry what I said last week." You know what I mean? I think the damage is done.
One of the big campaigns that the PFA and I have done is promoting and talking to players in regards to awareness around gambling addiction. And, talking to you, I was surprised by how much you say it's been prevalent within the league for a number of years. We've had some very brave players, the likes of Iron Hog, come out and speak in the media, like an active Irish League player, talking about his battles with gambling addiction and how it's significantly impacted his life. Were you surprised by the amount of players coming to you when you took up this role with talking about issues with gambling, or did you see it?
Honestly, if I seen it, I think it was another thing that growing up in the era I did. The first thing you sometimes talked about was maybe somebody mentioned something about a bet, and then I'd say, when you're in an environment like a change room, you got 25 players in a change room. I think everybody could have joined in that conversation. If you bring up other topics in the dressing room, sometimes people go, "Oh, don't know what they're talking about," kind of thing. But when it comes to a bet, when it comes to something happening or another player winning or losing a bet, it was kind of like built into the bus journeys. It was built into playing cards. You could kind of you could see it, and the telltale sign for me was, and it was the massive one for me. We used to come in after matches. If you got win, lose, or draw, you'd come in and you'd talk to all the players, and you'd have a discussion with the manager. It was the players that came in, and I can remember them all, and there was quite a lot of them that didn't even, their bum didn't touch the bench to sit down. They were
I
into their
remember this.
phone, and they were getting their
Checking.
phone out and checking it. And I always thought to myself, wonder they checking what, they're checking their missed call, are they checking who's texting them, are they checking if they're maybe their highlights or their goals on? But it was, you could see what they were scrolling in to look at, and they didn't talk about their bets. They were the ones, the dangerous ones, because they weren't talking about it. They were just going in and checking their phone, and you had no idea what was going on behind that phone screen. And that's where I seen a real problem. And then obviously when people speak out, it's brilliant. The gambler survey we did, the results of that are going to be published soon. We're yet to see them as well. I think that's Ulster University. But all that information and all that research, we're hoping we can use that to try and help improve our resources to help the players. But yeah, to say I was surprised, I'd be lying to myself. I kind of knew there was a lot of that coming.
It's not a problem unique to football. I mean, you get 24, 25, 30 young men under the age of 35 interested in sport. It's probably going to be a conversation which pops up. But when you brought up this issue, what you often talk about is how these are young men with, especially have another job, this kind of disposable income, and you're surrounded by it. Do you think perhaps the people who are in charge of football here need to strongly consider their approach to working with gambling sponsors, because it just kind of brings it, normalizes it perhaps within the game?
It's interesting because this is what the campaign is tomorrow. Obviously, within this game, it's the Big Step campaign tomorrow. Who are obviously looking at, within Northern Ireland, we don't actually have a gambling commission, and obviously, I think in the Republic of Ireland, they've took steps to stopping the marketing of the gambling companies and the promotion of the gambling companies. I, I'm a big football fan, and this, again, my own opinion. Like, I turn on a match, Premier League, and I could count maybe 5 to 6 ads with different odds, current live odds of the next goal scorer in that match within a 15-minute break at halftime. Like, I mean, when I think of that, that is normalizing it, as you say. This is normal. This is okay. This is something you can do, but you don't see 6 ads around watches. You don't, you know what I mean, or anything else, or selling other products. For
Or
me,
alcohol, or
yeah, it's got to the stage now where it's getting ridiculous. Where I heard this, and I don't know if it's true. This is just hearsay. I heard this that almost like they're paranoid about it. It is going to be banned, so they're thinking we might as well go big now and pump as much as we can. But my question to that is, what are they looking to achieve? Are they looking to hook more people? Are they looking to get more people in? Are they looking to, you know, hopefully increase more revenue and more funds? Because I think I've seen the stats down at a conference was that about the money that's going through the gambling companies as well. At the minute, it's not as if they're lacking, and it's one business that is generating a lot of money. Now that, for me, this is where obviously you go into a grey area with regards to clubs, commercial deals, sponsors, um, kits. You've seen it, and it's the question that nobody wants to answer. But I think as a union, we're in a unique situation. Our priority is our members, their welfare, and protecting them. So if we feel at any stage it's going too far and it's not protecting our members, we have to take a stance, and we have to take that stance. Other interests to other parties within football, obviously that's a decision for them to make. For us, we need to protect our members, we need to protect the welfare of our members, and we need to make sure that's under control as well and regulated.
And it highlights really the importance of a union like yourselves, regardless if people agree or disagree with your view on this topic. It gives players a voice and the ability to connect up together and speak louder as one in comparison to people trying to speak out as individuals within a club or within the broad network of the league. And on the topic of health, I wanted to ask you around, and I've seen posts about this. Where are you? Do you feel the Irish League is at when it comes to concussion protocol? Should we be doing more to protect players?
Yes, it's a very interesting one as well. Again, I was involved in a project where we're actually surveying ex players around concussion and the protocols around it. This is an area that is heavily concerning for ourselves. Is the protocols around it, how we protect our members, how we remove the manager and the coaching staff and doctors and physios from a situation where I think there needs to be something in place to protect everybody. Because at the minute, what you could have is, which concerns me, is a key player being concussed. He is needed to play. A doctor's give medical advice not to play that player, and the club are that desperate and that concerned about winning the next match because of their own pressure on their own job that they pay the player, or they play the player, sorry. And that for me is where the protocol needs to come in, where it's very, very clear. It removes the risk that's put on managers, doctors, physios, and most importantly for us, obviously, is the welfare of the players. Because my concern is if a player, I did it myself, I was concussed against Glenavon on a Saturday, and I played a match on the Tuesday night. And that was the norm because you just wanted to play. And it refers back to my old message about you didn't give up your shirt easy. So if you felt you could play, you could play. The risk I was at during that match, now I've seen the evidence and the data that supports it, was phenomenal. And I didn't
It's
think incredible.
I know you're a young man,
Yeah.
but it's incredibly dangerous, and this data around it, as you said, is very scary. And it almost, if it was to come in some shape or form where there was a hard rule in regards to it, it would also be protecting players somewhat from themselves.
Absolutely. Because I know right well, and we spoke about this, and the GAA were in the room and the rugby players were in the room. And it was fascinating because we all said the same thing. And this was the key message. If you ask a player, is he fit to play? He'll say yes. He will say yes. Now, something I was proud of, there was a player within the league who reached out to us because they weren't comfortable with it. And we were able to link them into sports medicine NI. They went in and they did the concussion test and the checks. And this person was kind of like forward thinking. And I loved that. I loved that. But that's not going to be the general populace. That's not going to be maybe everybody. So as you're alluding there to, a strict hard rule that protects the players, protects them from themselves, absolutely, for us is paramount. But again, it's football, and people will turn around and say, well, what happens if we're playing a cup final or a qualifier in 2 weeks' time? We'll say absolutely. The player's going to want to play. The manager's going to want the player to play. The board's going to want the player to play. The fans are going to want the player to play. But
And the doctor's got to be the body in the middle.
the doctor's going to be it's going to be the doctor's fault when he stands up against and say no. Now, if something happens to that player during that time, it will be devastating. But who's probably going to be liable for that? And in my eyes, probably the doctor will turn around and go, well, I'm the doctor, so it falls on my shoulders, and obviously the risk falls on me. So that's why the decision has to be removed and placed in the hands of the qualified people within the club.
So what would then that look like? Would that look like some form of, if you have a concussion, it's a automatic 2 week
Yeah,
rest period?
I think there's one again that they do with if in doubt, set it out in the GPA for the Gaelic players. It's kind of like the 2 week resting period, cooling period. Obviously, concussion testing at the start of the season, I think we would love to introduce a simple test for every player that if they are concussed, then they can measure where they're at when it happens straight away. So it kind of like monitors their health, most importantly, and make sure they're not put into a position where they're at risk. But to do that, we need to agree on a protocol. We'll take a firm stance on it, and we need to make sure we're not sitting here with a story that nobody will want to tell. Nobody will want to like call it this story that we've seen happen to young players playing rugby in Northern Ireland and different things where they've been concussed, they've went and played, and they've took a knock on their head, and it's obviously impacted within minutes, and that player dies on the pitch. We don't want to be in that position.
Just to cover some of the stories that have been dominating the headlines and the news over the past few weeks, what do the players make of some of the fan discussion around the perceived quality of refereeing within the league? Is it something that's irking players, or overall is it a case of they understand mistakes are being made?
Yeah, it's something. If I'm not sitting on the fence or getting away from this question. I think with the priorities we have had, it's something that we have never engaged with our members and never discussed with our members. It's been obviously a topic that's well known throughout football, and things like that. And I seen the incident obviously the weekend with Linfield and Portadown. Yeah, it's one of them ones that we understand as players, and this is just my own opinion. We understand as players that it's a difficult job. It's not an easy job. By no stretch of imagination is it an easy job. I think the biggest thing that probably worried a lot of players was maybe the way we just spoke with each other, the respect for each other, and working both ways, by the way, in terms of players can speak to the referee in certain ways it's not right, but also the way the referee speak to the players.
I've heard that.
Yeah, it's something that goes under the radar as well. So all in all, we've never approached our members about this topic or about this subject, but it's made something that we obviously look at. But we do want to help the referees as well. We do want the support. You know, you look at things. This is the problem as well, and this is what I say to all Irish League fans as well. You look at the Premier League referees making absolutely terrible decisions, and they are full-time referees with VAR, mic'd up with four officials, goal line technology, which is obviously fantastic, which isn't wrong, but there is still mistakes made at the elite level, same as players at the elite level. Do you know what I mean? Within the Irish League, they're humans, they're not robots. They will make mistakes, but obviously the frustration is always going to be that referees and managers and players cost you a game. And I think because you're living in that moment, and I lived in that moment as a player, that 3 points was the most important thing of your week. That one decision changes that. They can't cope. Like as players, we can't cope with it, and as managers and people, they can't cope with it. Whereas referees come out and sometimes say, "Look, I made a mistake," and move on to the next game. For a player and a coach, it's very difficult to do that, I think, and that's something that obviously is still within the game, and it's always going to be within the game. So, yeah, in terms of trying to support the referees to improve, to give them opportunities to improve, and obviously technology would be a massive help if, again, to assist them.
You talk about how you've had discussions with players about this, plan B, what happens after football. Were you good when it came to that? Did you always know? Obviously, you've now moved into full time within the union, but did you start early thinking, what am I going to do once football's over?
This actually annoys me about myself. I didn't actually enjoy my football career because I was worrying too much about what I was going to do after. I worked out very early. I was actually quite good at mental arithmetic when I was younger, so I worked out the maths that if I earn this money now, and this is me at the peak of my career, the only way it's going to go is down. So I was thinking, and I also see my body starting to seize up and my hips not moving like they used to, and I lost my speed and things.
That must have been scary.
Yeah. That is the worst moment for a footballer, when your body goes on you. And I'm 37 now, and I need a full hip replacement. I'm waiting on a full hip replacement, and I'm walking, can't even move properly. So that when that happens, But I went into university, came straight back from England, myself and Andy Waterford, and did a foundation degree together, then a master's in sports coaching degree and an honorary science, and then a master's in sports management. And alongside that, I was always trying to work and grow and develop. And then I ended up working for the Irish Football Association for years within coach education. And I'm working. I think that annoys me because I didn't actually enjoy the end of my career because I was that obsessed with getting a good enough job and a career that I loved and enjoyed. that the last few years of my football career was just like honestly, it was just literally turn up and play and train and go home, and that's what I think is probably the a disappointment of mine, is that I didn't get to enjoy it. And I was around COVID time as well, near the end as well, so I didn't do the big grand farewell, which wouldn't be me anyway. But I didn't actually leave in a good note, kind of thing. I left, and that was it. And it's amazing. That's what I said to the players last night in the change room, and it wasn't a feel sorry story. It was kind of like, don't be expecting somebody to walk out that gate behind you when you walk out of the club for the last day, like, or don't be expecting a phone call from everybody at that club, or don't be expecting, on the Tuesday night that people are going to say, "Oh, do you fancy coming back down to the club and seeing us again?" It doesn't happen. Like, it's, you walk out that club and it's over, like, and somebody else walks in, takes your shirt, and the club goes on, and the club keeps going on. As a player, sometimes that's hard to take when you're not getting the message, or come back for pre-season, or it's over, kind of thing. So yeah, that's what we talk about, obviously, within the dressing room, to try and just prepare them for that, and think ahead.
Because it's such an exciting opportunity. I don't want to say the word privilege, because it's earned. Every shirt and every game is earned. But it's just so exciting and brilliant to be able to play football at that level and even beyond in front of fans. But it's one that doesn't last forever. You look back on your time, tell you what, you've been in changing rooms with some incredible managers. I heard something from Sean Ward, which I thought was quite interesting. He talked about some of the teams, probably similar eras that you were, with the likes of the Villa Crews. I don't know if they're completely synced up.
Yeah.
But, he talked about being in that change room at Windsor Park, talked about the same on the Shore Road, talked about those two managers. And he said that those players and those teams were at such high levels, were just the elite within the league, and were so motivated, and that's why they were the best. In many ways, what the likes of Jeffrey and Baxter did, they were about guiding that along. Do you kind of agree with that at all? As in, like, the team almost managed itself, and those coaches came in, and they were just the finesse on top of it all.
Absolutely. That's the biggest thing that I took from Stephen and David was, number one, when I went from David across I went,
not to discredit their
yeah,
influence.
no, absolutely. They'd be the first to admit it.
Because it's their job to get these personalities together.
Absolutely. And manage those personalities, and manage them in their own unique way, and get the best out of every single player. They were incredible at it. And it was just simple how they spoke to you, how they made you feel, how they lifted you up when you needed it. You hear about all the players talking about Alex Ferguson, that worked there. They always said the right thing at the right time. That was the thing I'll say about Stephen Baxter and David Jeffrey. They always managed to say the right thing at the right time, and it sparked the players, and it got the players going, and the players respected them. And see that once you have those three things, where you got the respect, they speak to you in a way that gets you going, the players will then respond accordingly. And that's most of the time what happened in those teams. And that Linfield team and Crusaders team, we were lost 2 games in a row. We very rare, if we lost 3 games in a row, the players didn't accept it. It wasn't acceptable. It didn't happen. So that was the mentality. As you're saying, it was an environment, it was a culture, it was led by players, but it was managed by personalities, characters, staff as well, coaches. Some of the coaches of those clubs that people don't know, probably won't get the credit for, were also there driving the standards, improving things. So yeah, I was very fortunate within the Irish League, and I always say that I was very fortunate within my time at, obviously, Linfield and Crusaders, to be surrounded by, as I'd say, some players that were, and not always technically the best, by the way. The players, that's what I always say to other people. They always think, oh, they're the best players. Not maybe technically. If you take them into another team, they might not stand out and do all those things. But when it comes to winning games of football and playing as a team, they were the best. Like, that's why they won the league. So that was always my message when I was obviously speaking to younger players as well.
Were they both firm? Because they give off this reputation for being kind of both carrot and stick. Was it more stick, maybe, on a cold Tuesday night in Belfast somewhere?
It was the perfect balance. It was the perfect balance again. They knew, like I'm saying, see if you needed a rolligan, you got a rolligan. See if you needed the arm around the shoulder, they put their arm around the shoulder. See if there was a crisis meeting, it was delivered the right way. It was never, ever done like in a way that made you feel like it was your fault. It was just the way they did it. and they knew, and that would come from experience, because I'm sure they made mistakes earlier on in their career. They both had long, illustrious managerial careers, but I'm sure they made mistakes at the start of their career that they learned as they grew themselves. But by the time, obviously, I was working with them, I was very fortunate, because it seemed like it was just easy for them. It seemed like it was easy. I'm sure it wasn't, but it seemed to me it was easy the way they managed some characters and personalities that were unique, to say the least.
I want to end on maybe a few quick fire here. Is it clear in your mind who the best player you ever played with was?
Oof. Um, Probably not. Probably. um, yeah. Oof. People do ask this, and there's one player that I think I always tend to go back to, and at the time, because I probably shared a change room with them most, that Linfield and Crusaders within the Irish League, and it's a player that actually didn't push on, and I think he probably could have. I had the potential to. It was probably Billy Joe Burns, in terms of he was just unique. I remember just we used to be the I used to wind Billy Joe up because he didn't eat well. He didn't really take care of himself. But come match day, Billy Joe could just come alive, like and he was incredible. And I generally do think this. He left Linfield and went to Crusaders, and he was the missing piece in the puzzle for Stephen Baxter to start winning and dominating. And once they got him in, there was no surprise of how that club went. And he's unassuming. He doesn't talk about himself. He gets his job done. And for me, he was one of those players that I was lucky to play in front of. Probably I was in the right wing most of the time. He was behind me, and you just knew Billy Joe was all right. Like, you never worried about Billy Joe. But it'd be poor for me not to say other people, like, very lucky shit. Robert Gard, the likes of, obviously, Michael Galt, obviously at Linfield, Jimmy Mulgrew, Glenn Ferguson. To me, Glenn Ferguson, I played with Glenn Ferguson when he was at the end of his career, and I've never seen anything like it in my life. Like, and I still haven't seen anything in terms of a centre forward, in terms of wow. And that was him at the end of his career. So I couldn't imagine what he was like prime Glenn Ferguson, because he was 36, 37 when I was playing with him. And some of the things he was doing was incredible. Incredible.
Is there a peak? Because you talk about those difficult moments coming back to Northern Ireland, maybe feeling the body not doing what it was able to do previously, but you had so many successes. Is there one in particular that stands out that's just your happiest memory?
Yeah, there's two. I think be greedy. There's two. I think be greedy. The year with Linfield that we done double for the second year in a row, and the Irish Cup final against Crusaders, the free kick against Crusaders at that time, that Linfield team. I loved that season. We were an unbelievable team. When I look back at the squad, it was like I felt a wee bit like it was unfair because of the amount of quality. We could have put two teams out and competed. It was that strong, but to finish that league, do the double 2 years in a row after missing out in the league is a great feeling, because you're always trying to bounce back once you lose the league. So that cup final was fantastic for me. And then obviously when the difficulty of leaving Linfield is that big a club, and you move to Crusaders, and it's seen as a rival and a competitor. When I moved across and we played in Europe and I scored a goal in Europe that helped Crusaders progress, that feeling as well out in Estonia against Levada Tallinn as well will live with me for forever. Like, so yeah, they're the two moments that stand out the most for me.
And I'll be sneaky, and I'll put maybe not a quick fire, but a bigger question just on the idea of kind of where football is in 2025. You've talked about this before. You know, you were a player who played as a forward, played a bit as a winger. You've seen the Irish League push forward. That comes with these ideas that come from the top of football trickle down. And as the league's improved, fitness has improved, and probably the tactical nous has also improved. But we've seen some types of players, maybe some positions or some styles of football being almost coached out. Do you recognise that? And do you think it's positively a good thing? Like the winger that goes and attacks and really goes after the wing back, that's not really a thing. And in turn, it feels like we're having wing backs coming out the wazoo.
Yeah, this is interesting, because I think I speak to a lot of, I worked for years with Tommy Johnson, obviously, and different players in a different eras that they played in. And obviously, you look back at different games and you think, flip me, back in them days, they did this. But actually, when you go back in history and you go back into different international managers and styles of play, it'd be amazed what you learn through different cultures and different nations, the way they set up tactically and their strategies. I don't think a lot of them have actually massively changed in terms of what they're trying to do. Like we talk a lot about pressing now and getting pressing and different types of pressing. Different managers back in the day probably had different ways of doing that and saying it. It maybe just wasn't publicized as much or made out to be like that. But one thing that definitely has changed is obviously the awareness of the game, the tactical awareness, the punditry of the game, the way teams are set up now as well, the way they play. I was always probably in an era where Northern Ireland we sat in as a youth international team. We this famous block your box kind of
Uh-huh.
style, like don't cross the halfway line unless we really need to, and we try and keep the score down. Was always the mentality, and we'll hit them on the break kind of stuff. But I watched the Northern Ireland team the other night, and the way they set up against Germany, it was a joy to watch. It was brilliant. I thought it was fantastic. They're brave, courageous. We pressed high up the pitch, so there's different styles, there's different themes, there's different things, but within it, the objective still remains the same in terms of what you're trying to achieve. But it's just the evolution of the game and where it's going. But I think when I speak to the older players, they're kind of saying Johan Cruyff did obviously stuff that you probably didn't see back in the day, and different managers did stuff as well, the way they set up and things and different things like out there, and it's interesting. One thing, my bugbear at the minute is teams that are playing out from the back for the sake of playing out from the
Yeah.
back with no objective other than for me to look good playing out from the back. That's a bugbear of mine potentially. And I listened to Craig Bellamy on a podcast talking about it, and how he broke it down in his mind. It was amazing at the elite level how he explained it. But that would be a bugbear that you see teams doing it, and I don't understand if they fully believe in it themselves. Like,
Fine. Oh, what a way to end talking about Craig Bellamy. Probably not a million miles in style difference compared to Michael Carvill doing his thing in grounds across Belfast and beyond. Michael, thank you so much for chatting to me, giving people who listen to this a bit more of an insight about not only what you do, but really what the temperature is around the league when it comes to players and how they're feeling and what they're working towards and what the reality is of being in the Irish League in 2025. I think overall there's a sense of optimism about that there is this view of progression, whatever way people may think that will look like. We're speaking on the day where the Any Football Fund comes out, which comes with its winners and those who feel slightly hard done by. But you must feel, sitting back just to end this on, the league you came into and the league where it is now, it's a better place.
no, absolutely, it's a better place, and like I reiterated earlier, there's an opportunity for it to go again and grow, and that's what we all want, and to improve even more so. And I think that's what you can only do. You can always try and improve and not sit still. And there's an opportunity now with more facility funding coming in, and obviously pushing better players through academies and trying to improve the overall standard and quality across the whole league will be fantastic.
If anybody wanted to contact you about anything, how can they do that?
Yeah, Michael.Carvill at PFANI.com, or go through the website and reach out to us. Very simple, PFANI.com as well. So we're always there. We want a big message that we want to get out as well, that ex-players, I speak to a lot of ex-players and go, we would have loved to have something like this. We do have an ex-player membership package that we try and bring them on board and get them back involved and get them involved in a lot of activities we do, because sometimes they're forgotten about. And for me, an ex-player walking into current fantastic their own experiences. I don't think you'll get better than that in terms of lessons and learning from the players that have been there and done it.
Michael, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Peter.
2 for 1, doing pretty good. Lots of content out there for you, but I know you appreciate all the game recaps as well as the previews, so we will be back to normal next week. Might be, late on Tuesday. Hopefully, could maybe be Wednesday. But if you're worried about when the timing might be coming out, good way to just be on the ball is by going to whatever your podcast player is, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I don't know the other ones. But if you use them, that's fair. Do you well. But if you're on one of those big ones, you can subscribe or follow this podcast. Go to the main page. There'll be little dots, little wheel. Click on it. It's free. It's easy. Just subscribe, follow. And it means you'll get a little buzz, a little notification saying, boom, new podcast out. It was probably a good thing if you did it, because you're like, oh, there's a second one out. Didn't expect that one to come out today. It's all good. See, I'm here to help you. You can help me. Hundreds of you out there who follow the podcast, so sounds like a pretty cool club to be a part of. See you next week for our regularly scheduled nonsense. Thanks again. Bye.